Hello everybody, my name is Brian Adcock. Welcome to the Hever Castle Triathlon and the 12th running of the event. If you're listening to this video, you should be competing in the Standard Aquathlon, which is taking place on Sunday the 27th of September. If you're listening to this briefing and you're not competing in that race, then don't listen to this because it's not for you. So Standard Aquathoners, your event will kick off obviously with your swim, and I'll talk about that in a second. But just to give a bit of context to the event this year, obviously COVID-19 is a big part of our lives now, and for the permitting process we were guided by 5 principles. Those 5 principles were athlete education and communication, of which this video is part and parcel. Secondly, by touch point reduction, which basically means that we want you to touch as little at the event that isn't your own whilst you're here, just to reduce the risk of infection. Thirdly, density reduction, so we've got a reduced size of field and it's spread out throughout the course of the day, much more so than in previous years. Fourthly, there'll be improved hygiene on the event, namely through increased cleaning, but hand sanitizer stations, wash stations, and so on. And fifthly, and importantly, we are asking athletes to be more self-reliant than they perhaps have been in previous years. And I'll explain what I mean by that later. So those are the 5 principles that have governed the planning process. Anyway, I'm going to share my screen with you now, and we're going to talk about your swim. So bear with me a second. So you're doing a 1500 meter swim. You will have watched this video in conjunction with the other video that explains how we're expecting you to arrive at the event and what you do when you get here. So just to remind you that you'll find yourself down here in this left-hand side of the loggia. There'll be 15 of you in your group. You'll have had a little brief from me about which of the swim boys you're due to swim around, but you will only be able to see a few of the boys that you can swim around, because a lot of your swim course is around the back of the river here. So as soon as you cross the mat, which is at the top of the steps, your time will start. Some of you will take a fairly leisurely approach, which is absolutely fine. Others will be in more of a hurry, but just be careful because these steps are super slippy and you're not allowed to dive in here because it is shallow. So you'll swim out to the first buoy that you'll see in front of you, and you swim either side of that at 100 meters. Second buoy, 200 meters either side. Third buoy, the same either side. When you get to the 400 meter buoy, you must swim around this, keeping it on your left shoulder, because you're doing a 90-degree left-hand turn, which will take you over to a double gate just over here. By a double gate, I mean 2 swim buoys that are about 10 meters apart that mark the deep channel that has been dredged specifically to get you into the river section down here. So you must swim between these 2 buoys. The Japanese tea house is this little square dot that you can see here, and that actually blocks the view of the 2 buoys that are kind of tucked around the corner here. So you won't be able to see these 2 from back on the loggia. From there, you swim into the river section. First thing you do is swim underneath a bridge just here. You can see all these blue rectangles. These are to indicate good places to watch the swimming. So if you have come with a spectator, then my suggestion would be to send them out onto 16 Acre Island, because that is a great place to see you swim. From there, you'll pass a series of buoys as you go around. Ignore the distance markers on these, but every 200 meters you'll pass another buoy until you get around to here, where there's a second bridge. And then you've got approximately 200 meters to go until you finish. You swim round to the left and then back into the main sort of lake section of the swim across the front of the loggia. Don't worry about other people getting in the water here, because we'll manage their entry so that they don't crash into you. And then you exit the water at this point here. In previous years, we've had a large fellow called Simon pulling you out of the water, but he won't be there this year. You will have instead some scaffold handrails, so you'll be able to pull yourself up and out of the water using those rails. But just take care in that area, because that is a slippy ramp, although we will have a rubber mat on it. Once you've exited the water, you turn immediately left on some blue carpet, run along this little track here, and then from there you're directed uphill and back in towards transition. And that is your swim. Swim safety, as in previous years, we'll have loads of canoeists and powerboats out on the course. The only difference that you may notice is that the powerboaters will be wearing PPE, because they're the guys that end up fishing people out of the water and come into close proximity with competitors. So that's your swim. So when you get into transition, your T1, in the middle there, you'll come up the grass from this top left-hand corner and then into the corner of transition past the deer fence just here. You'll then run down the length of transition and you will come to whatever point in transition has been designated as your rack. Once you get to the end of that rack, and there'll be a series of either numbers or letters on the end of the rack so you can identify which is yours, you then run down the length of that rack and come to your racking point. Obviously, you haven't got a bike, but you will have a rack space nonetheless in transition. So change out of your wetsuit and your swim stuff into your running stuff, leave everything in a tidy pile there, and then when you go out on your run, you make your way to the end of that line of racking and then turn left, follow these green arrows, and left again at the end, which will take you out to this corner. I know this is a bit of a faff and different from what we normally do, and it is adding extra running to your event, but this way we get a one-way system going through transition, and it should prevent people from bumping into each other, which we don't want to happen. So you come out this corner for run out, and then you run down the length of transition, but on the outside, and you're away on your 10.5 kilometer run. So just switching over to the run. And you can see that, let's put that on full screen. So this is transition here. You come out this corner and then you have got about 300 meters or so until you get down to Marshall Point 1, which is at the bottom of what's called Shite Lane. You'll be then turned left up the hill. By the way, you're doing one circuit of this 10.5K course, and you're following yellow or green signs that say run route on them. Some of them are small A4 sized ones, others are bigger, more like an AO size. And there are loads of marshals out on the course who will point you in the right direction. So from here, you're running uphill till you get to Marshall Point 2, and then you cross from the sort of road planings track that you're on onto the grass, and you handrail part wood until you get to the first feed station. You probably won't need feeding at this point, but you're welcome to help yourself if you do. Feed stations are manned, but they're not going to hand you anything. Everything will be laid out on the tables, and they will direct you to whatever it is that you need. The first table will have a choice of cups of water, Coca-Cola, as in flat Coca-Cola, or High Five energy source drink in cups. Second table will have gels, third table bars, fourth table third of bananas, which will be cut and ready for you to take. And there will also be some jelly babies. So help yourself as you go past at any point. From there, you come out onto a metal road, you turn south and run down the road for 500 meters before turning left onto a bridle track down here at Loch Skinner's Farm. This is a beautiful bit of running up and over a little hill and down into the western side of a hamlet called Hill Hoath. You'll be turned right at this point onto a public footpath, and you make your way steadily uphill to the high point of the run course, which is at the water station. Water station is laid out not dissimilar to the feed station, only water, High Five energy source drink, and flat Coca-Cola in cups, as well as gels at each of the water stations. So they're kind of water stations plus, if you like. Then from there, this is a bit of private land that we're allowed to use for the benefit of the triathlon, and this is power hoed in advance of the event, so you should have a pristine surface. That said, if it does rain, this is the bit that gets muddy, and we have had to put hay bales down here in the past, but it's relatively short-lived, so if it is a bit muddy, just bear with it, it will get better. From there, you make your way north up through a couple of farmers' fields and back into the hamlet of Hill Hoath. At this point, you turn right, and there is actually a single toilet that we place out here on the course that you can use should you need the loo on your way around. And then from here, you make your way through on a public footpath, past a couple of lakes, through a little wood, and then north up through a farmer's field and into the village of Chiddingstone. When you get to Chiddingstone High Street, it's a tarmac road, you turn left, you run downhill past the church and the pub that are opposite each other, through a set of metal wrought iron gates at the end of that road, and then you're onto the Chiddingstone Castle estate, which is this little estate in here, and you pass the second feed station, laid out in exactly the same way as the first feed station. From there, you go downhill, over a bridge, across the front of the castle, and then up to the main entrance of the castle, whereupon you'll be turned left and you head up a metalled road for 300 meters turning right directly opposite the orangery of Chiddingstone Castle and onto this bridle path down here. So nearly there. You've got about 4.5k to go at this point. You head downhill through a wood called Moor Wood, and then out onto a horse cross-country course that's got a series of jumps. You don't have to jump them, don't worry, and there'll be no horses out there when you pass through. When you get to the top of the gentle hill here, you'll cross the road again, come back past the first feed station, again, help yourself, and from there you're back onto the Heber Estate, and you've got approximately 3 kilometres to go. You head downhill, down to the lake where you swam earlier, and then you're basically doing a circumnavigation of the lake. We will have a second water station laid out like the first water station here on what's called Anne Boleyn's Walk, which is a long straight drag through the formal gardens. You'll cross over the first bridge that you swam under a few minutes earlier, across 16-acre island, and then over the second bridge that you swam under, and then you'll run up towards the castle, around the formal gardens, and eventually you'll climb up a steep gravelly hill before finishing down here, and I like to call this the finish straight. It's about 300 metres long, it's gently downhill, and you'll bowl down here past the ticket huts, and then when you get to this point here, keep your wits about you, because there's a fair bit of signage here and there'll be a fair few other runners out on the course. You're going to turn right where it says finish, and you'll turn right at that point, and the finish line or finish area is just here to the left of transition, and that is your race complete. Please enjoy yourselves. Please be respectful of other people. Keep your social distance as you're running around. You are allowed to overtake, but try and pick points in the path where you can guarantee 2 meters between you and other athletes. If you've got any questions at all about any aspect of this brief, then please email us in the office at admin@castletriathlonseries.co.uk. Thank you for listening.